Have you ever been on a team that just clicks? Everything flows, it feels effortless. And have you ever been on a team that's just the opposite? All friction and frustration. Well, why is that? The answer goes way deeper than just talent or strategy. It's about the hidden psychology of how we connect or fail to connect with each other.
And that brings us to this really powerful idea from Patrick Lencioni. We tend to think of teamwork as a soft skill, right? Something that's just nice to have. But he says, no, that's completely wrong. It is a deliberate, difficult, strategic choice that a team has to make if it ever wants to do something truly great. And making that choice starts with seeing through a really common illusion. The fact is, a lot of the groups we call teams aren't actually teams at all.
Think about it like this. A working group is kind of like a golf team. Everyone plays their own game, does their own thing, and at the end, you just add up the individual scores. But a real team? That's a basketball team. The players are totally interactive, they're dependent on each other, they're passing the ball, setting screens. The whole game shifts from how did I do to how did we do. It's all about collective success.
So when we talk about a true leadership team, we're talking about a pretty small group, 3 to 12 people. But the most important words on this slide are collectively responsible for a common objective. On a real team, there's no room for someone to say, well, hey, I did my part. It doesn't work that way. If the team loses, everybody loses. Period.
And when teams do fail, it's almost never just one thing. It's this predictable downward spiral. It all kicks off with an absence of trust. And we're not just talking about trusting someone to do their job. This is about vulnerability-based trust. The trust to be messy, to be human, to say I don't know. Without that, you get a fear of conflict. We just nod along in meetings because nobody wants to have the real passionate debate. And if you don't debate, you get a lack of commitment because nobody ever really bought into the plan in the first place. That leads straight to an avoidance of accountability, which then lets the whole thing collapse into inattention to results, where everyone's just looking out for number one.
Okay, so that's the what. That's what goes wrong. But to really get to the heart of this, we need to understand the why. And to do that, we've got to dig a little deeper into psychology and into the ghosts of our past.
So why is this pattern just so incredibly common? Why is it so hard to build that foundational trust? The answer, weirdly enough, isn't in your office. It's actually hidden way back in your earliest relationships.
All right, here's the key concept. It's called object relations theory. Now, it sounds super academic, I know, but the idea is actually pretty simple. When we're infants, we internalize our experiences with our parents. We create these unconscious mental blueprints or objects. And those early blueprints end up shaping how we see and react to other people for the rest of our lives, especially authority figures.
This quote just makes the whole idea crystal clear. A child who can never please their parents might grow up perceiving God in that exact same way. And, we do the same thing at work. If your parents were super critical, you might unconsciously expect your boss to be the same, and you'll spend all your time looking for little signs of disapproval, even if they're not really there.
Now, this unconscious pattern, it's called transference, basically distorts our reality. It can go one of two ways. You might have direct continuity, where you just expect your boss to be exactly like your harsh parent, or you might have opposite inclinations, where you overcompensate and you're desperately looking for that caring boss to give you the approval you never got. Either way, you're not seeing the actual person standing in front of you.
I love this definition here. Transference is an error of time. It means right here, in the present, you're reacting to your boss as if they're your parent from the past. You're fighting old battles in a brand new arena. And, well, that is a perfect recipe for a dysfunctional team.
So, if all this psychological baggage from our past can totally sabotage our teams, what's the way out? What's the alternative? Let's talk about a new and I think much more hopeful vision for how leaders and teams can actually work together.
We're really looking at two totally different paths for leadership. The old way, the traditional way, is the zero-sum game. If I'm leading, you have to follow. Leadership is treated like this limited resource that has to be hoarded. But there's this other, much more powerful alternative, polyphony.
Polyphony is actually a musical term. It's what happens when you have multiple independent melodies all playing at the same time to create one rich, complex piece of music. Think of an orchestra. In a team, it means everyone can exercise leadership in their own way. More voices don't create chaos. They actually enrich the whole. A great idea from a team member doesn't diminish the leader. It makes the entire symphony sound better.
And this quote from David Cunningham really hits the nail on the head. We get trapped in these false choices. We think it's either the leader's vision or the team's contribution. But Polyphony says that's just the wrong way to look at it. The leadership of the few and the leadership of the many can and absolutely should exist at the same time.
Okay, so polyphony sounds awesome in theory, right? But how in the world do you actually create an environment like that? An environment where all those different voices can thrive? Well, that brings us to a really practical model for making it all happen.
The key is for the leader to learn how to hold the ring. Now, picture a boxing ring or a circus ring. The leader's main job isn't to be the star performer in the ring. Their job is to create and protect that space, to set the boundaries, ensure safety, maintain the focus, so that everyone on the team feels empowered to step into the ring and do their absolute best work.
And how does a leader actually do that? How do they hold the ring? Well, check this out. They do it by building the exact opposites of the 5 dysfunctions we talked about before. This is the work. You intentionally build that vulnerability-based trust. You encourage, you even demand healthy, productive conflict. You push the team to get to real commitment. You foster peer-to-peer accountability, and you keep everyone laser-focused on the collective results.
Now, this all might sound like a really nice leadership philosophy, but I know what you're thinking. Does it actually work in the real world? You know, the hyper-competitive world? Well, let me tell you a quick story that proves this isn't just theory. It can actually achieve the impossible.
5,000 to 1. In 2016, those were the actual betting odds against a small, overlooked football club called Leicester City winning the English Premier League, which is one of the toughest sports leagues on the entire planet. To put that in perspective, bookies gave the same odds to finding Elvis alive. No joke.
I mean, these guys were the ultimate underdogs. Their rivals were global giants, teams stuffed with superstars. Leicester City's entire squad of players, the whole team, cost less to assemble than what some of their rivals paid for a single player. They were not a collection of individual geniuses.
And yet, they won. They pulled off the impossible. How? Because they were a real team. They were a polyphonic team. They had that deep vulnerability-based trust. You could see them engaging in fierce, productive conflict on the field, holding each other accountable to the highest standard. Their commitment to the collective result was just absolute. They proved on the world's biggest stage that a truly cohesive team can achieve so much more than a dysfunctional collection of brilliant individuals. So I guess that leaves all of us with a final question to think about. Think about the most important team in your life. It could be at work, in your family, your community, whatever. And ask yourself, are you all playing like a group of disconnected soloists, each one just focused on their own part? Or are you playing like a symphony, where every single voice, every instrument contributes to a sound that is far greater than any one of them could ever make alone?